Hello guys and welcome to the Lost Magics, and how are you all this evening? Blessed be and merry meeting to you all. Hello guys and welcome to the Lost Magics, and how are you all this evening? Excuse me, I am echoing, it's off. Hello Chris, hello to Dakota as well. So obviously I would like to do a big shout out to Parapost and to all of the networks that are sharing the business and the network out. We very much appreciate you guys. We also appreciate the guys that are coming in the room and support us and are with us every single step of the way. So we love you all and thank you for that as well. So obviously I am back, guys. I've been away for a number of weeks, but I am back and got lots of interesting ideas and things to bring for this show. I am going to cross over with Dakota and Chris at some point about some other things to bring in. I know that there will be a couple of occasions in the shows where I'll be doing my resin products and stuff like that. So, but I would like to be bringing some other stuff in that's regarding with, like, obviously witchcraft and maybe some paranormal bits, like little chats, bringing that in and associating it with that. I'm wanting to bring in people to do like some sort of interviews, or them coming up and talking and us doing like a set scene for a show. I have been away, but I have been thinking over things and thinking how I can bring more to this show. So that is what I am aiming on doing. Tonight's show is going to be about the witches' trials. Now, the information that I've got is bits that I know myself and bits that I have picked up from websites and stuff where I've been doing my research. But before I start doing that, and as people come in, I'm going to start off with just having a little chat with you guys and helping you guys to feel a bit more stronger in yourselves, because I know that there are a few of you out there that have been struggling with what you should do, if you should keep doing your faiths and things, and I'm just going to talk to you and tell you why I think that you should. So just doing the things that I'm good at, I guess. Yeah, there's no Dakota. There's no Dakota. There is no intro because it is in the process of being updated. So we started with Sherry's face today. So woo! Not a bad thing, I guess. And obviously, I will try to silhouette and try to explain as best as I can for the podcast side of it as well, obviously. So, okay. Lots and lots of interesting things going on with the network and lots of really cool things going on. So it's really good to be part of that, guys. And please share out and let people know that I am on. So I'm just going to start because I'm not going to sit here, and then if you guys miss anything, you can go back over the video and that, and I will say that through the stream and that. So first I just wanted to start with like giving some confidence and stuff, right? Okay, because I've had people coming over to me recently not feeling very strong within themselves, not really knowing which direction they should be turning. And I very well know how this feels because I've been on this network like YouTube for a long time, and I've had my fair share of issues and stuff that's gone on, and it's all just because you're doing really well, guys, okay? And because you're different. And there is nothing wrong with being different. There's nothing wrong with being you. In my opinion, there is no right or wrong way to be an investigator, be a witch, or be anything that is associated with the strange and the unknown. Okay? We're all individually different. We all think differently and we all work and act differently, okay? And we all have our own ways that we're set and our own ways that make us feel comfortable in the work that we do. For instance, for me, because of obviously being dyslexic and things like that, I do have a Word document where I will put information that I've put and information that I have got from websites and stuff like that, and I put that all together and I read that out. Now, in my opinion, research and investigation. What is it? Okay, it's us. Okay, it don't matter if you're an investigator or if you're a witch or you're a shaman, whatever. We all associate in doing research and investigation. Okay, because we're looking into the situation, we're trying to establish a way around that, how to help. This is what we do. This is what we're supposed to do. Okay, and there is no right or wrong way. If you want to be somebody that likes to embrace other people's information and bring that out, I don't see why that is a problem, as long as you mention those people as well, because there is a lot of information and really good facts out there. And let's be honest, none of us know everything. Okay, me myself, I am a natural and self-taught witch. Okay, so I've never used the ways of covens, and I don't know every witchcraft symbol. I don't know every association to do with witches. I know what I've learned and what I've researched and what I've studied, and that doesn't make you any less of what you are, in my opinion. Okay, we're all different and we all work differently, and the fact is we are researchers and investigators in all of these things that we do, because we are always seeking more information. We're always seeking more to help others and educate. And education is about being as forward with the right information, in my eyes. And none of us know all of that information, so we use it in other ways. So don't be so quick to walk away when people make it a little bit different or a bit difficult for you, okay? Because the fact is, it's not supposed to be easy, okay? And when you're in this line of work and you have a passion for this line of work, you're going to get a lot of people that have opinions and look at you in different ways. What's the most important thing in that is what you believe in and what you want to follow. The words of those that don't really know you should not be the things that affect you, okay? The words of the ones that trust you and believe in you are the ones that you listen to. You listen to yourself as well. That is the most important thing. Listen to yourself, okay? And be yourself. Hello, Dobby sis. How are you? So, my opinion, should you walk away from what you seek to be and what you love? No, I don't believe that you should walk away, and I believe that you should be able to be who you want to be and be proud of it and be proud to be different, okay? And just know that we're all inspirational in our own ways, okay? With this network, for me, okay, it shouldn't be about things like fame and stuff like that. This sort of network, this sort of place that we are on in YouTube to do with the strange and the unknown, it's about the spirits, isn't it? It's about the strange and the unknown, the UFOs. It's the passion that we follow and we seek, okay? So that should be the most important thing, okay? Like fame and TV and things like that are really cool things to do, but they're not always there and out there the way that some people say it, okay? So just be proud of how you are and what you do. And, you know, in my opinion, I like how I work here and how I am now, because even though I work for others, I am in charge of myself in what I do, and that should be how everyone should be able to be. You should be able to be in charge of yourself and in charge of what you're wanting to present to your fam, your followers, whatever you call them. So just be you, okay, guys, and just know that for each one of them out there that is against you, there are so many that are for you, okay, and they're the ones that you need to keep focusing on. Yeah, I know Dobby's was away on holiday as well. So just be you, guys. Just be you and enjoy what you do. That's the whole point of this, is enjoying it, but also obviously being serious when you have to be. And, there's so many people here that can help you and support you and guide you. There's so many different people that you can meet on here. So, and in this network, Bold and Bonkers network, there's a lot of awesome people, guys, that, know their stuff. And we're always here to reach out and to help us to the best that we can. If that's in paranormal, ufology, witchcraft, whatever it is, but we're here. That is who we are. There is some absolutely amazing stuff coming to the network. Don't forget to tune in with Bold and Bonkers tomorrow, guys. That'll be Chris and Dakota, because they're going to be having their amazing guest Elena coming up, which is to do with ufology, and she's had some really cool encounters. So don't miss that lady. She's absolutely amazing. And obviously don't miss the lads as well, because they just make the show as well. So that is tomorrow night. So don't be missing that. Obviously, Sister Drew was on yesterday and done a show where she interviewed a investigation team. Absolutely amazing. If you didn't go and watch that, then please go over and support her as well. That's Drew's Paranormal Vlog. And watch that as well. Very interesting people. Obviously, support everybody in the room as well. Hello, pups. Love you. How? Woo. That's all you can get from me. I've not got a very good throat. So my aim tonight is to talk about the Salem witch trials. Okay, so we're going to talk about the witch trials tonight. Then next week, we're going to be looking into the different categories of witchcraft in different countries. This does include witches and practices that are in Texas as well, but they're going to be other places that I talk about as well. So that's going to be next week's show. But this week we are going to be concentrating on the witch trials. I feel that this is a really important topic to talk about, because there is a lot of us out here that practice and do these sort of crafts, and they're very close to our heart. And in this whole world, a lot of people are very aware of what the Salem witch trials was, and that it resulted in innocent people that were killed for their beliefs and just for being slightly different. Okay, now I just want to talk to you about that. Now, obviously, you know that the Salem witch trials started in 1692 and ended in 1693. In this trial, it's believed that the reasons for these horrid events to happen was to do with spiritual belief and politics. It was to do with feuds between families. If families were slightly different, if there was a family that had one person that believed in one thing and somebody else that believed in another, this would cause a problem, and then the community would realise that something was off, and they would class that as being unusual and not normal, and they would then class that these people were of something else. The politics side of it was a very big play in it, because there is one way that is believed, and obviously a lot of people believe in the Christianity and stuff like that. They believe that a religion is a certain way. So if somebody slightly practices something in a different way, that wasn't looked at as being human. That was looked at as being something that is of a negative kind, which is a load of rubbish. It wasn't. But a lot of people, innocent people, lost their lives just because they were a little bit different, and because of the beliefs of the politics, because of the beliefs of religion and the faiths. So those that once were accepted and just looked as being normal, then suddenly become a problem. Okay, now it's sad when you think of it that way, because if you think about these trials that happened to these people, before all of this come alight, these people would help higher powered people that had relatives or loved ones that weren't well. They would help them, and once they see what these people could do, and they see the disasters that were happening in the world as well, they put two and two together and thought that it was them causing those problems, these spiritual people, these people that see the world in a different place. And it was barbaric, okay? Mainly it was women that were targeted, but the families of those women would also suffer, okay? So if you was a female, when you had a family and you had children, and you had a husband, and that husband was aware of what you'd done, you would all be punished for being in the association with that person that is being classed as the witch, okay? So to not carry on that line and that faith that those people have, they ended it. That's why all of these horrid things happened. You had burning at the stake. You had people being drowned. You had people being prodded and scratched. So I've got a few things that I have looked into that I'm going to share with you tonight, so that you can kind of understand it more. But the truth and the fact of it is that when these trials happened, they shouldn't have. Okay, everybody has a right to have a belief and to act how they want to act. But back in that day, if you wasn't in a set way and you didn't follow certain protocols, you were looked at as hexed or cursed or evil or bad, associated with the devil. All these things. If you could read the signs of the moon and the sun and the seasons and things, you weren't normal, okay? But yeah, to us that's barbaric, because we all know the truth, and we know that when it comes to things that we have today, such as cancer treatments and treatments for other illnesses, we wouldn't have any of these such things if it was not for the knowledge of those people back in them days. When we go in and we pick these medication up from doctors and that, this is not stuff that they've come up with. This is stuff that's been around for many, many years, that our ancestors, and some of them ancestors were people that were classed as witches and were killed, okay? Now, if it wasn't for them and their belief and what they did, we would not have these things today, and we would not be able to cure things, okay? So it's very 50-50 with witches. You've got those that follow us and believe in us and believe that we've got good, and then you've got those that are really against us and think we're evil and we're bad and we're cursing and we're doing all sorts of things to this world. It's ridiculous. The fact is all these disasters and all these things that you see are things that you're causing yourself, okay? As people, as humans, okay? You do things to this world every day, polluting it, damaging it. That is what makes things fail in this world. Not people that are spiritual and see the world in a different place and in a different way. Okay, so that story, and that we've cursed crops and we've made people ill and we've done this and we've done that, has carried all the way back to when the trials were going on, okay? The main reasons were the political side and the beliefs and religion, okay? They did not believe that people that could see the world in a different place and in a different way were of a human way. They didn't believe that we were of the light. They believed that we were of the darkness and that we put bad things up on this world. And it's horrible to see that, and it's horrible to say that, but that is the truth. And to some extent, it's still that way today. We've still got those people that think we do all this bad stuff, when if you looked at yourselves in the mirror, you'd realise that we're all doing things to this planet. We're all doing things that are not good for this planet, which is why these disasters happen, which is why these crops and other things are not growing. It's all very vigilant. So let me get into what I researched. Now, The stuff that I'm going to read you out is a bit of bits that I've put in, but a lot of it is research from websites to do with history and things like that. Now, as I go through, there will be names at the ends of like where I got the information from. I do feel that it's really important that you guys kind of try to get an understanding of what the witch trials were. So obviously first was why and when did the witch trials start? Well, it's believed that the witch trials started in 1692. And the reasons were outrageous, obviously. It was religious beliefs and political beliefs. And these beliefs became and come from churches themselves, okay? Family feuds. If you was a little bit different and one of your relatives were different to what you were, this was classed as a problem. Hysterical children were even brought into this. If you was a mother to a child that was hysterical, they would class you as a witch and your children as being part of a witch, okay? They would class all of these sort of things. So, like, in my belief, when you hear these reasons, it don't seem like a reason to kill innocent people, really, does it? If you're being honest, you know, because your child might be a little bit hysterical. Now, we all know today that children can be erratical. They can act in many different ways because of things happening in their life, emotions and things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're part of a witch. And even if they were, why is that a problem? Witches are not bad people, okay? Family feuds. If there was a difference within a family and it was caught on by these higher powers, this would be another way that they would try to say that you was not of the human side, you was not of the light, you're of the evil, you're of the darkness, so therefore you've got to be associated with dark magic. A lot of this belief come from the beliefs within the churches, okay? Christianity was a religion back then that made many people lead and believe that what we are today and what they were back then is an evil and a bad thing to be, without not really knowing the full scale and story to what we actually really are. It was to do with authority as well, if you think about it. In churches, in businesses, in anything, there's got to be an authority. And in this, the authority was very, very powerful and very strong. Okay, so when people come forward to them and brought people forward that they believed to be witches and be evil and bad, it would be put through authority, and it would be authority's decisions to what would happen to these people. So the courts and the higher powers in that way were the ones that sentenced these innocent people to death. Okay? So, some history I've researched about to do with the witch trials, and I am using some information I found very helpful and interesting. So part 1, the research from Google. Okay? The Salem witch trials occurred in Cornell, Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693. More than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, the devil's magic, and 20 were killed and executed eventually. The colony admitted that the trials were a mistake and compensated the families of those convicted. One place it was known to start from was province of Massachusetts Bay. The trials are said to have took place all over the world, and they did. They took place in Massachusetts, in USA, and in USA itself. They were known to be in Scotland, in Germany, in other parts of the world as well, England, some of the Islamic places and stuff as well. So there was a lot of places all around the world that were going through the very same thing as what was going on in Massachusetts. Okay, guys, like they say that 20 people were convicted and executed, and 200 others were put up. But I believe there was so many more than that, and a lot of them would not have been named. And I don't think that it's possible that everybody had been put forward in that way. So I believe there is many more deaths than what is stated. Who started the trials? Well, the trial started on March the 1st, 1692 in Massachusetts. The authorities interrogated Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and an Indian slave, Tituba, to determine if they indeed practiced witchcraft. So began the infamous Salem witch trials of 1692. How were the witches killed back when the trials started? 20 people were eventually executed as witches, but contrary to popular belief, none of the condemned was burned at the stake. In accordance with English law, 19 of the victims of the Salem witch trials were instead taken to the infamous gallows hill to die by hanging. There is still a belief that some witches all over the world were killed by burning, drowning, and in some cases even some of the family members were killed because it was believed that the families carried the so-called curse. A brief look into the trial and the deaths research from the History.com. In January 1692, a group of young girls in the Salem village of Massachusetts became consumed by disturbing fits, accompanied by seizures, violent contusions, and blood-curdling screams. A doctor diagnosed the children as being victims of black magic, and over the next several months, allegations of witchcraft spread like a virus through the small Puritan settlement. 20 people were eventually executed as witches, but contrary to popular beliefs, none of the condemned were burned at the stake in the accordance with the English law. The 19 victims of Salem witch trials were instead taken to the hills of the gallows, and they died by hanging. The elderly Giles Corey, meanwhile, was pressed to death with heavy stones after he refused to enter an innocent or guilty plea. Still more accused sorcerers died in jail while awaiting trial. The myth of the burning at the stake in Salem is most likely inspired by European witch trials, where execution by fire was a disturbingly common practice. Medieval law codes such as the Holy Roman Empire's constitutions and criminals of Carolina stipulated that malevolent witchcraft should be punished by fire, and church leaders and local governments oversaw the burning of witches across parts of the modern-day Germany, Italy, Scotland, France, and Scandinavia. Historians have since emerged that the witch hunt hysteria that peaked between the 15th and the 18th century saw some 50,000 people executed as witches in Europe. Many of these victims were hanged or beheaded first, but their bodies were typically incarcerated and afterwards to protect against post-mortem sorcery. Other condemned witches were still alive when they faced the flames and were left to endure an extricating death by burning and inhalation of toxic fumes. These people endured some of the most horrific and most evil deaths. that nobody should have to witness, and all because of some of the beliefs and because of the way that some of their behaviours would have been. Other ways would have been through certain markings. There would be certain markings on their bodies, such as moles and things, and sometimes if they got bigger or they might have grown out a little bit, they would be also accused of being witches. I will get to these facts a little bit more in a minute. Some facts on witch trials, research from NewYorker.com. Okay. In 1692, the Massachusetts Bay Colony executed 14 women, 5 men and 2 dogs for witchcraft. Dogs, really? The sorcery materialized in January. The first hanging took place in June, the last in September. A stark, stunned silence followed, although we will never know the exact number of those formally charged with having wickedly, maliciously and benevolently engaged in sorcery. Somewhere between 144 and 185 witches and wizards were named in 25 villages and towns. The youngest was 5, the eldest nearly 80. Husbands implicated wives, nephews, their aunties, daughters, their mothers, siblings, each other. One minister discovered that he was related to no fewer than 20 witches. The population of New England at the time would fit into Yankees Stadium today. Nearly to a person, they were Puritans. Having suffered for their faith, they had sailed to the North America to worship with more purity and less peril. Then they could do in the country where they were as a clergyman and a centre of the crisis, later explained, on a providential mission. They hoped to begin history and knew they had the advantage of building a civilization from scratch, like any oppressed people. They defined themselves by what offended them, which would give New England its gritty flavour. And it has been argued America its independence. New England delivered great purity, but also introduced fresh perils, stretching from Martha's Vineyard to Nova Scotia and incorporating parts of present-day Rehoboth Islands, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Maine. In perched on the edge of wilderness, they was precarious position well before 1692, when the colony tethered between governments, or more exactly, as a Boston merchant put in between government and no government, the settlers unseated their royal governor in a death in 1689 military coup. They had endured without a character for 8 years. From the start of the colonists tangled with that American stample, the swarthy tourist in the backyard without a knock or a greeting, 4 armed Indians might appear in your parlour to warm themselves by the fire. Propostinating you while you cowered in the corner with your knife. You could return from a trip to Boston to find your house in ashes and your family taken captive. The Indians scold, they lurked, they fitted, they committed atrocities, and they vanished. Our men could see no enemy to shoot at. A Cambridge Major General laminated. King Philip's War, a 15-month conflict between the settlers and the Native Americans, had ended in 1676. It was obliterated a third of New England's town, pulverized its economy, and claimed 10% of the adult male population. Every Bay Colony resident lost a friend or a relative in the trials. All knew of a dismemberment or an abduction. By 1692, another Indian war had begun to take shape, with a series of grisly raids by the Barbacani and their French allies. The frontier had recently moved to within 50 miles of Salem. Just trying to find the other bit. Men who categorized their dangers, who could discern a line of revelation in the hailstorm, protected against them spiritually and politically. They assisted in coups and instilled regions where witches were concerned. They defended to the biblical injunction, though salt nor suffer a witch to live. Exodus commands. The most literal man in Massachusetts in 1692 were also the most literal among them. Few probed the subject of witchcraft as intently and did the lanky, light-haired mother, who had entered Harvard at 11 and preached. Martha, who had entered Harvard at 11 and preached his first sermon at 16. He knew that the hidden world was there somewhere. He would relinquish no tool to exhibit it. Martha shared a non-church proclivity with his hilarious father, increased Martha. The president of Harvard was New England, best known as most prolific minister. His son would eventually eclipse him on both counts, publishing 437 books, 26 of them in the next 4 years. The elder Martha was returning from England that spring when a new charter, the fruit of 3 years negotiation, it promised at last to deliver Massachusetts from chaos. The colonies awaited in the judiciary suspense. All manner of rumour circulated as its terms. So unreliable was the news that the monarch could be dead 1 minute and alive the next. In isolated settlements, the smoky fire-lit homes, New Englanders lived very much in the dark, where one listens more accurately, feel more passionately, and images more vividly, where the secret and the occult thrive. The 17th century sky was crow black, pitch black, Bible black, so black that it could be different at night. To keep to the path, so black that a line of trees might freely migrate to another location, or that you might find yourself pushed by a rabid black hog, leaving you to crawl home on all fours. Bloody and disorientated, even the colony's less isolated outposts felt their fragility. A tempest blew the roof off one of the finest homes in Salem as its 10 occupants slept. A church went flying with its congregation inside. A visitor exaggerated when he reported the New Englanders could neither drive a bargain nor make a jest without a text of scripture at the end of it, but he was not far off. If there was a book in the house, it was the Bible. The early modern Americans thought and breathed and dreamed and disciplined and bartered and eliminated in Bible text and imaginary. St. John the Baptist might well turn up in the land dispute. A prisoner cited Deuteronomy 19:19 in his own defense when a killed cat come flying in your window, taking hold of your throat and crushing your chest as you lay defenseless in your bed. You scared it away by invoking the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Ghost. You also concluded that your irreconcilable neighbours had paid a call in feline form. Human fallacy was understood to account for inclement weather, teeth chattering, toes numb. The Massachusetts Puritan had every reason to believe that he sinned flamboyantly. He did so especially during the Arctic winter of 1691, when bread frozen on commotion plains, ink in pens, sap in the fireplace. In tiny Salem village, the revered Samuel Parris preached to the chorus of rattling coughs and sniffles, to the shuffling of cruelly frostbitten feet. For everyone's comfort, he curtailed his afternoon sermon of January the 3rd, 1692. It was too cold to go on. The unjust relationship between capitalism and blackness. Weeks later, word got out that something was grievously wrong in the Paris household. The minister, with the minister's 11-year-old niece and 9-year-old daughter, complained of bites and pinches by invisible agents. Abigail and Betty launched into foolish and ridiculous speeches. Their bodies shuddered and spun. They were limp or spasmodically rigid. They interrupted sermon and fell into trance. Neither appeared to have time for prayer. Though until January both had been perfectly well behaved and well mannered, at night they slept like babies. In 1641, when the colonists established a legal code, the first capital crime was adultery. The second was witchcraft. If any man or woman be a witch, that is, has or consults with a familiar spirit, they shall be put to death. Read the Massachusetts Body of Laws. Blasphemy came next, followed by murder, poisoning, and bestiality. In the years since, New England had indicated more than 100 witches, about a quarter of them men. The first person to confess to having entered into a pact with Satan, a Connecticut servant, had prayed for his help with her chores. An assistant materialized to clear the ashes from the heart and the hogs from the fields. The servant was indicated in 1648 for familiarity with the devil. Unable to resist a complimentary pretemural or otherwise Cotton Martha disseminated an intrusive account of her concept. In 1688, 4 exemplary Boston children the sons and daughters of a devout Boston stone layer named John Goodwin, suffered from a baffling disorder. They would bark at one another like dogs, and again purr like so many cats, noted Martha, who observed Cohen's family and wrote of their afflictions in memorable proverbs related to witchcraft and possession. The following year, the 1689 volume was a salute to his father's illustrious providences. A grab bag of apparitions and portents published 5 years earlier. The Goodwin children flew like geese on one occasion for 20 feet. They reclosed from blows of invisible sticks, screeched that they were sliced by knives or wrapped in chains. Jaws, wrists, necks flew out of joint. Potential reproof sent the children into agonies. Corons defined them, but nothing in the world would so discompose them as a religious exercise, Martha reported. 13-year-old Martha could read an Oxford compendium of humour. Although she seized up when handed a volume he deemed profitable and edifying, or one with the name Martha on the cover. He observed her symptoms more closely. Martha that summer took Martha Goodwin into her home. She scented and trotted and galloped about the household on her aerial steed, whistling through family prayer and fuming anyone who attempted it in her presence. The worst house guest in history, she held books at Martha's head. She read and read his pages on her case. The cause of Martha's affections was identified soon enough. The witch was the mother of a neighbourhood laundress. On the stand, the defendant was unable to equivocate to the receipt of the Lord's Prayer, understood to be proof of guilt. She was hanged in November 1688 on Boston Common. Samuel Parris, the Samuel Mister, would have known every detail of the Goodwin family's trials from Martha's much reprinted memorable Providence. The book included the pages Martha widely ridiculed, the adjunctions, writing tumblings, tossings, wallowings and foamings in the persons where the some only more acute. The girls cried that they were being stabbed with 5 needles. Their skin burned. One disappeared halfway down a wall. They screeched. Their screeches could be heard from a distance. In 1692, a basic medical kit looked little different from an ancient Greek one, consisting as it did of bleater's blood fox, lung and dried dolphin heart, in plasters or powders. Snail figured in many remedies. Salem's village had one practicing physician that winter. He owned 9 medical texts. He could likely read, but not write. His surgical arsenal consisted of leeches, razors, and saws. The doctor, who had examined a seizing Groton girl. A generation earlier, interestingly diagnosed a stomach disorder. On a second visit, he refused to administer to her further. The disputer was biblical in origin. Whoever examined Abigail and Betty arrived at the same conclusion. The evil hand came as no surprise. The supernatural explanation was already the one on the street. The diagnosis likely terrified the girls, whose symptoms deteriorated in many have gratified revered Paris. Witchcraft was Porturish, a pertinent favourite. Never before had it broken out in a personage. The devil's appearance was nearly a badge of honour. Further proof that New Englanders were the chosen people. No wonder Massachusetts was troubled by witches. Cotton Mather exulated, where will the devils show most? But soon the 12-year-old daughters of a close friend of Paris began to shudder and choke. So did the village doctor's teen-age niece. A creature had followed her home from an errand through the snow. She now realized that it had not been a wolf at all. The girls named names. They could see the corporate clearly. Not one, but 3 witches were loose in Salem. What exactly was a witch? Any 17th century New Englander could have told you as workers of magic. Witches and wizards extend as far back as recorded history. The witch of Salem conceives her materialized in the 13th century when sorcery and heresy moved closely together. She came into her own with the Inquisition as a popular myth yielded to a popular madness. The Western Alps introduced her to the lurid origins. Germany launched her into the air as the magician molted into the witch. She also became predominantly female, inherently more wicked and more susceptible to satanic overtures. An influential 15th century text compressed a shelf of classical sources to make its point. When a woman thinks alone, she thinks evil, as is often the case with questions of women and power. Elucidations here verged on the paranormal, though weak-willed women could emerge as dangerously, instantly and condemning. The English witch made the trip to North America largely intact. She signed her agreement with the devil in blood, bore a mark on her body for her compact and enchantment by ways of charms, ornaments and puppets and dolls like effigies. Consensual witches had more fun. They walked on their hands. They made pregnancies last for 3 years. They rode hinds to bachelorettes deep in the forest. They stole babies and the man's parts. I will not say that out. The Massachusetts witch disorder, the barn and the kitchen. She seldom flew to internet meetings, more common in Scandinavia and Scotland. Instead, she divined the contents of an unopened letter, spun suspiciously, fine-lined, survived falls downstairs, tipped hay from wagons, inhaunted beer, or caused cattle to leap 4 feet off of the ground. Witches could be mutilating, conjurers, malignant or implementable, strong, and unaccommodating smart. They could commit the capital offence of having more wit than their neighbours. As the minister said of the 3rd Massachusetts, women hanged for witchcraft in 1656. So even though the most known time for the witch trials was 1692, there was murders of women and men and families going on before then. Okay, there was a very big problem with people that worked or looked at the world in a different way. You can clearly hear and see from what I'm reading to you that people had a very big problem with anybody that was slightly different, and we would have been accused of so many things. Okay, so this is why the witch trial started, because there was so much things being noticed in different countries that certain people were doing, and because of this and the history that I've just been reading to you, this carried on through these civilizations and through the world, and this then become a problem, and people like us were looked at as being cursed and being of the devil. Okay, so anyone that was classed as being a witch or being accused as a witch, 9 times out of 10 would have been executed. Only some were found innocent, but even they did not survive 9 times out of 10 because of the cruel and horrid events that they had to face. Okay, so even if you was innocent, 9 times out of 10 you did not survive because of what you had to endure. And as it says here, it was happening all around the world. Clearly, from what I'm reading, there has been a lot more than the 200 that were accused in Massachusetts and the 19 that were executed. That became 20 because one died in prison, and there was one that was killed by having stones and that put on him. But that's why this all started. The political side, the belief and the religious side all believed that people that were different and of a different belief were cursed, were evil and were bad and were doing bad things to them, to their families and to the world. Okay, so they wanted to do something about this. So what did they do? They brought in the Salem witch trials. And if you had certain markings, or you acted in a certain way, or you didn't have good behavioural manners, or if you just seemed to be somebody that had a lot of issues or problems or things like that, you was right away classed as being a witch, or possibly in that practice in some shape or form. Okay, and 9 times out of 10 you would be found guilty, and therefore because you were guilty, your family would be guilty as well, so your family would endure the same. And because it's classed as a curse, anybody that was remotely related to you had to be removed as well to stop that so-called curse. I'm just trying to go down, guys, because there's quite a lot of... I don't want to read everything because we're going to be for hours. So I just want to go to the bits about the actual deaths. And there was a lot of people that were very much against the asylum trials. They didn't believe that it was right. They believed that innocent people were being murdered, which they were, and you know it was wrong to be treated like that just because you were slightly different, and for things to be put onto you to the point that you would be executed and killed in some of the most horrible and horrific ways. I'm just trying to find the bit that I wanted to read to you guys. Here are some signs that practitioners used that apparently told them if you was a witch or not. But sadly, most of these resulted in death. Some innocent in death. So innocent or not, you most likely lost your life due to these horrid tests that were done and endured on you. So the first one was the swimming test, okay? So this was one of the most known ways of them testing if you was a witch or not. As part of the infamous swimming test, accused witches were dragged into the nearest body of water, stripped to their undergarments, bound, and then tossed into sea if they would sink or they would float. Since witches were believed to have superb structures, burdened the sacraments of baptism, it was thought that the water would reject their body and prevent them from submerging. According to the logic, an innocent person would sink like a stone, but a witch would simply bob on the surface. The victim typically had a rope tied around their waist so they could be pulled from the water if they sank, but it wasn't unusual for accidental drowning deaths to occur, which would be, I'm not being funny, but if any shape or size, if you're being bound so that you cannot move, and that, okay, 9 times out of 10, you're all going to sink. You know what I mean? So how did they really be able to tell that you was innocent? That's how I look at it. Like, if you bobbed up on top of the water, like, I'm not being funny with that, there could have been something in your clothing that made you float. It's nothing to do with the fact that you was a witch or anything else. It's just simply maybe something that you was wearing, or your body isn't as heavy as somebody else's body, so you're able to stay above water. That does not mean that you was a witch, but this was a lot of the things that people would associate with you being a witch. So if you sunk, you was innocent. If you floated, you was a witch, and you was executed. Which swimming derived from the trials by water, an ancient practice where suspected criminals and sorcerers were thrown into rusty rivers to allow a higher power to decide their fate. This costume was banned in many European countries in the Middle Ages, only to re-emerge in the 17th century as a witch experiment, and it persisted in some locals well into the 18th century. For example, in 1710, the swimming test was used as evidence against Hungarian women named Darko Buddha, who was later beaten and burned at the stake as a witch. The second test was a prayer test. The medieval wisdom held that witches were incapable of speaking scriptures out loud, so accused sorcerers were made to recite selections from the Bible, usually the Lord's Prayer, without making mistakes or omission. While it may have simply been a sign that the suspected witch was illiterate or nervous, any error was viewed as proof that the speaker was in the language with the devil. This twisted test of public speaking ability was commonly used as hard evidence in witch trials in 1712. It was appealed in the case Jane Wenham, an accused witch who supposedly struggled to speak the words, forgave us our trespasses and lead us not into temptation. During her interrogation, even a successful prayer test didn't guarantee an acquittal during the Salem witch trials. The accused sorcerers George Borishans and Flawsley received the prayer from the gallows just before his execution. the performance was dismissed as a devil's trick, and that the hanging proceeded as planned. So even if you was able to speak out and do that Lord Prayer perfectly, you was not, excuse me, you was not guaranteed your life, okay? If they still felt there was things about you that didn't seem right, they would still have you out for execution. They would look at it that the devil was using you to try and get through, okay? When in simple ways, like it says, they could have been nervous, they could have been scared because they're on the spot. Some of them may not have even been able to read, okay? So they wouldn't have been able to read that structure anyway. So how these people could say that that was the right way to do things was just barbaric, and it's the most evil thing you could do. And I'm telling you that these people endured some really terrible things. The third one was the torch test, okay? The torch test worked on the idea that victims of sorcery would have a special reaction to physical contact with their evildoer. In cases where a possessed person fell into the spell of fits, the suspected witch would be brought into the room and asked to lay a hand on them. A known reaction signalled innocence, but if the victim came out of their fit, it was seen as proof that the suspected had placed them under the spell. But the thing is when you read this, okay, it's no different to when you walk into a church and if you're possessed and your vicar puts his hand on you and does prayers and preaches over you. Does that mean that he's a witch and he should have been executed as well? Because he did the very same thing. Okay, so how is it any different? Torch test played a famous part in the 1662 trial of Rose Cullender and Amy Denny, two elderly English women charged with bewitching a pair of young girls. The children had been suffering from fits that left their fists clenched so tightly that even a strong man could not pray there, fingers apart. But early tests showed they easily opened whenever Cullender or Denny touched them. To ensure the reaction was genuine, judges had the children blindfolded and touched by other members of the court. The girls unclenched their fists anyway, which suggested they were faking. But even this was not enough to prove the woman's innocence. Cullender and Denny were both later hanged as witches. The fourth one is the witch cakes, a bizarre form of counter magic. The witch cake was a supernatural dessert used to identify suspected evildoers. In cases of mysterious illness or possession, witch hunters would take a sample of a victim's urine, mix it with the rain meal and ashes, and break it into a cake. This stomach-turning conception was then fed to a dog, the familiar or the animal helper of the witches, in the hope that the beast would fall under its spell and reveal the name of the guilty sorcerer. During the hysteria that preceded the Salem witch trials, the slave tuber famously helped prepare a witch cake to identify the person responsible for bewitching young Betty Paris and others. The brew failed to work, and Tiberius' supposed knowledge of spells and folk remedies was later used as evidence against her when she was accused of being a witch. Number 5, another very popular way that they would have supposedly been able to tell if you was a witch was by witches' marks. Okay, so witch hunters often had their suspects stripped and publicly examined for signs of an unsightly blemish that witches were said to receive upon making their pact with Satan. This devil mark could supposedly change shape and colour and was believed to be numb and insensitive to pain. Prosecutors might also search for the witch's teat, an example, an extra nipple, allegedly used to suckle the witch's helper animals. In both cases, it was easy for even the most minor physical imperfections to be labelled as the work of the devil himself: moles, scars, birthmarks. Sources: supernumerary nipples and tattoos could all qualify, so examiners rarely came up empty-handed. In the midst of witch hunts, desperate villagers would sometimes even burn or cut off any offering marks on their bodies, only to have their wounds labelled as proof of a covenant with the devil. Number 6. Pricking and scratching test. If witch hunters struggled to find obvious evidence of witch marks on a suspect's body, they might resort to the ghastly practice of pricking as a means of sussing it out. Witch hunting books and instrumental prophets noted that the marks were insensitive to pain and couldn't bleed. So examiners used specially designed needles to repeatedly stab and prick at the accused person's flesh until they discovered a spot that produced the desired result. In England and Scotland, the torture was eventually performed by well-paid professionals, prickers, many of whom were eventually conmen who used dulled needle points to identify fake witch marks. Along with pricking, the unfortunate suspect might also be subject to scratching by their supposed victims. The test was based on the notion that possessed people found relief by scratching the person responsible with their fingernails until they drew blood. If their symptoms improved after clawing at the accused's skin, it was seen as potential evidence of guilt. Number 7. Incarnations, also known as the charging. This test involved forcing the accused witch to verbally order the devil to let the possessed victim come out of their fit or trance. Other people would also utter the words to act as a control, and judges would then gauge whether the statements had any effect on the victim's condition. Charges were famously used in the 16th century witch trials of Annis Samuel and her husband and daughter, who were accused of bewitching 5 girls from the wealthy Throckmorton family. During the proceedings, judges forced the Samuels to demand that the devil release the girls from their spell by stating, "As I am a witch, so I charge the devil to let Mistress Throckmorton come out of her fit." At this present, when the possessed girls immediately recovered, the Samuels were found guilty and hanged as witches. So it wasn't just people, like a lot of people portrayed that it mostly was women, and it wasn't. There was a lot of women that were killed and accused of being witches, but there were also men and there were children as well, guys, and other family members. And these procedures that they used to establish if you was a witch or not was just ridiculous. I'm not being funny. A third tip that is quite common on the part of a lot of people. It's just where there is a bit of overgrown skin that's poked out, and it's made it look like a nipple. Okay, it doesn't mean that the devil or an animal is sucking off it or anything like that. Like, you've got the scratching and that. Of course, like, when you scratch, and if you scratch to a point you start bleeding, of course you do, because you're ripping your skin and your layers, so of course you're going to bleed. If you didn't bleed straight away, then you was classed as being a witch. But the thing is it takes a number of attempts when you're scratching for you to actually start drawing blood, depending on how sharp and how long your nails are and that, okay? So some of these practices and these things that they believed could prove that somebody was guilty and somebody was of witchcraft was just absolutely ridiculous, okay? And these poor people endured some really, really nasty things, okay? And so if you was remotely different, or you had behavioural problems, or you had children or people in your family that had behavioural problems, if you had certain markings, if you acted in certain ways, if you could do certain things, okay, they would automatically believe that you're a witch and that you should be executed. The fact is witches are not evil and of the devil. Yes, I admit there are some people in our practices that do really silly things that don't make us look good as witches, but believe it, real witches are of the light, okay? We believe in healing and goodness and in love. We have an understanding of different seasons and of the way that the world works. We see things in a different way. We appreciate things in a different way. That is all that we are, okay? Yes, we're spiritual. Yes, we can do some really cool things with spells and stuff, but we do not cause curses and droughts and infections and evilness and things like that. That is not who we are, okay? And for these innocent people, our ancestors, to go through these things and to be accused in some of the most ridiculous ways, it still baffles me and gets me today, okay? Because some of them would stand at the stakes and be burnt and have to take in those toxic fumes. They would have to endure that overbearing pain that they felt in their body. Then you've got the drowning. If you couldn't swim, or you had a fear of the water or anything like that, you're going to go into shock mode, aren't you? So then your body is not going to do what it should do, okay? These were all really bad ways to make an assumption. And I'm not, even if they were a witch, I don't believe that they should have been killed, because look at us, okay? We're innocent and good people. We just care about what we do. And nobody deserves to lose their life because of their beliefs and because of they're slightly different, okay? It was an evil thing to do and a judgmental thing to do, and to an extent, a racist thing to do, okay? It was racism, because that they weren't different. They weren't different in the way that they would accept. They were different in the way that they see them as a problem, you know. So what do any of you guys have anything you want to say or anything, guys? Let me just go up the chat and see what you guys were saying. I've not been ignoring any of you. Hello, Shrimp and everybody. It's just I've been really, really busy reading the stuff out, because I like you guys to be as acknowledged as you possibly can. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It is right to protect your friends and family from evil. And a lot of these men that had wives that were being accused and children and stuff, they would try to protect their family. And why would they not? You know, they knew that these people were good. They knew that their family were good people. They just done things to try and help people and stuff like that. Of course, they were going to try to protect them and stop this from happening. And unfortunately, through a lot of their actions of trying to do that, they would be killed as well, which is, it's just horrible, you know. And some of them would even be made to watch their families be killed first before they were killed, you know, like, and all because they're just a little bit different and see things a little bit differently. You know, the Salem witch trials was one of the most evilest events to take place in this world. Along with that, obviously there's other events as well, but this was evil. This didn't just happen in one place. This happened all over the world. Obviously in Massachusetts, 200 were registered as being accused and 20 of them died. But that's not mentioning all of the people in the other countries. As it said, England, it was said that there was a good couple of thousand people that were killed for being witches. Not to mention you had Scotland and Germany, Scandinavia. You know, it probably even went even further than that. It probably went to places like Africa and Turkey, and you know, Italy was mentioned. You know, it was all over the world. There are witches all over the world. The fact is, we are not the sorcerers of evil. We do not bring curses and make this world suffer, okay? We are trying to do pretty much the opposite. We are trying to save our world. We are trying to help people. We're trying to bring goodness into this world. The people that make this world suffer, make this world ill, is the people that live in it, okay? The way that you look after it, the way that you are. If you looked after this world, if you done things the right way, then half of the disasters and the things that you go through every day would not happen, okay? And that is a fact. It's nothing to do with somebody that does magic and can do really cool things. The disasters and the ways of this world and what's going on simply happens because we do not look after our planet properly, okay? We put poisonous fumes into the air every day. We pollute our rivers and our sea with rubbish, okay? We pollute by smoking and drinking and putting rubbish on the floor. We ruin our world every day. And the ones that are witches and open or spiritual are those that see this and want to make better. Now, I admit, I do smoke, but I will not throw my fag butts on the floor for an animal to pick up. What I do is I scratch it out and I throw it in the bin, okay? I don't believe in polluting everything. Like, you're not going to get struck down by God and the divine for having a cigarette, okay? The simple fact is what you'd be struck down for is polluting it. So if I was to walk, smoke and just throw the cigarette, that's different, okay? I admit sometimes I have been known to just throw it if I'm busy and I'm not thinking and that, but I always apologise and things like that. But 9 times out of 10, I will throw the things away. Like, I do not pollute by putting cups and stuff on the floor or leaving rubbish, things like that. I don't do that, and I don't agree on that, okay? And it's those things that we do every day. People that don't have no feelings, don't see this world in the way that they should. People that don't realise what they're doing to this world are the ones that are doing this, okay? We're not the ones that are causing these problems at all. Just mankind itself is. That's why the climate's changing. That's why there's changes in the weather in different countries. That's why there's these disasters and these hurricanes and all these other things that continuously happen. Because we're continuously ruining our world. Witches, spiritual people see that and want to change that and want to make the world a better place, okay? We see things in a different place. We appreciate what we have and who we are and what we have around us, okay? And that's what we do here. We're not trying to pollute your mind. We're not trying to curse you. We're trying to learn you to be safer and to be more caring of your world. Because if you're not, some really bad things are going to happen. There is already things happening in this world that can't be explained. And why do you think that's happening? Because it's getting to a point in this world where us as humans, we need to be reared and we need to be shown what we're doing, okay, before it's too late. Okay, that's why we've got aliens and UFOs. That's why we've got different philosophers and different people that do talks and do things every day. That's why people like us do our education every day and educate you guys, because we're trying to wake you up to the reality of the real world and what's really happening. So the next time you sit there and you see something dying or something going on, please don't blame it on witches. Realise it's you as a human doing it yourself because of what you're putting into this planet. Okay? That's all around the world. So that was my intake on the witch trials, guys. So what I'm going to do now is lovely Dakota and Chris made sure, well, Dakota made it, but obviously it's to do with the Bold and Bonkers show, and made me a lovely little video that I just wanted to be made just to show you the importance of witches and what they endured in 1692 to 1693, okay, and how it was wrong, okay, and lovely Dakota just made me a little video to share with you guys, and I hope that you do watch this and take this on and realise that don't be ashamed to be different, because being different means that you're saving the world, okay? Dakota, if you want to... These pictures and this stuff is what I got in my research. I wanted to find some pictures and stuff that was really going to shout out. So obviously in them pictures you had some of the scenery of what they would have gone through. Then you had some pictures of the places where our fellow ancestors were murdered, guys, okay? And I wanted to share that video with you. So thank you, Dakota, for making that for me. I just wanted to share that with you just so that you guys can kind of understand the importance and that those poor people should not be forgotten. And they're definitely not forgotten because they live in our hearts because of who we are. And we will forever stand up for who they are because they are important. And I hope that you enjoyed the show. So now I'm just going to see if Dakota wants to come up and introduce anything. So I know that he's got some things going on with the network and stuff like that. I don't know if he wants to do any quick announcements, or Chris or anyone. So Dakota, if you want to come up and do any announcements quickly before you do your video out, that's awesome. But thank you guys for coming in, for supporting and being here with me on Lost Magics. I hope that you enjoyed the show today, and lots of love and light. And over to Dakota.
I do want to say good job tonight, Sherry. It is awesome to finally have you back. Just kind of add to one of your points. You got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, they have actually found plastic in people's blood.
Yeah.
It's gotten to a point where we're just waiting for some catastrophe to happen because we don't know what this will do.
Yeah.
So I believe Sir Isaac Newton actually did some calculations where he said that he believed that a new age in the world would start in 2020. Think about all this weird stuff that's been going on just for these last few years.
Yeah.
So just
it's not witches. It's not witches doing this, guys. You know what I mean? It's humankind doing it to this world because of all of the different things we've got, all of the different pollutions and everything we've got in this world. That's what's doing this. All of these crop kills and animals dying and people die. It's not witches, okay? It's everyday life that's doing this.
Exactly. We're slowly starting to approach a point of no return, so there may be something big on the horizon. I know Drew, she's been talking about this year being the year of revelations, and quite frankly, she may be onto something.
I believe that it's going to be. I've said that there's going to be big stuff that comes this year and that. And obviously, with my reading, some of the words I get really confused and stuck on it. I do write all of my stuff down. So what I will do is post this on my company channel and on the Bold and Bonkers site on Facebook as well, guys, so you can actually read it for yourself, so that anything you didn't understand that I was reading, you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, all right. I do want to say, Drew, your interview with Shadowhunters UK is actually going to be airing here in about 2 hours through Bald and Bonkers channel, so be on the lookout for that. She did a very good job with that one.
She did. It was an awesome interview. And they were really good people, so don't miss it, guys. Come over and check her out and watch the show on Bold and Bonkers in a couple of hours.
Yep. Let's see. Tomorrow we have one of our favorite guests coming on, Elena Denan, who's big into the UFO phenomenon. She's actually been helping me and Chris with some stuff behind the scenes to try to figure out the things we're seeing. So needless to say, the conversation is going to get very exciting because I do believe that Chris is getting a bit of a crush on her. I can't go through you, brother. Yeah, I just said it. Anyway, no, but I do know that Elena is looking forward to tomorrow. She's been promoting us out like crazy. We've gotten I think it was almost 50 new subscribers since she shared us out. So that woman really brings in a crowd. So you do not want to miss that one. Do remember Bald and Bonkers does have its own official website. A merch store is going to be coming soon. There's all sorts of new projects coming to the world. Yes.
We're busy, guys. Lots coming.
Oh, yes. A lot coming. So, nevertheless, do stick around. You will not want to see what we have coming up next because, quite frankly, we're all a little shocked we've gotten this far.
Oh, yeah. We weren't expecting to be sitting here yet. Or, to be honest, ever. I just thought it was just going to be a normal channel and a normal business, but we are going places and it feels really good.
I know. The show's only been going not even 6 months and we already got this
That's what I'm saying. We're booming. We're going like we've been going for years and it's only been 6 months. So, yeah. Onwards and upwards, guys. It's really good. And if you want a place to come to where you're going to be educated properly, where you've got really good people that are really into what they're doing, Bold and Bonkers Network is the place. Okay, guys? You've got loads of different people you can retaliate with and, bond with, and we're here to do that.
Exactly. So you will not want to see what comes out because, quite frankly, we're a little shocked that's going this far, and we don't know what's coming next either. So.
Yeah, we're a bit on like the whiplash. We're waiting for the next hit because there's going to be a next hit, definitely. I'm sure, many. So, yeah, it's exciting. It is exciting.
Yeah, it is. So, thank you, Mike, for popping in. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end this here, so that way we're not hogging up the airways for Drew's show. Do check us out tomorrow because I know Chris is very excited, like I said.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, Chris.
So, much love, everybody. Thank you for this incredible journey. We ain't stopping anytime soon. That's all I got to say.
No. We're here forever, guys. Lots of love, light, and blessings. Blessed be and a merry parting. And thank you for joining the Bold and Bonkers, the Lost Magics tonight. I am Willow, and good night. And thank you. Blessed be.
Goodbye.